What's up, friends? Welcome to my channel where we're doing music covers, original music, album reviews, song reviews, just a little social commentary here and there, whatever the day calls for. I teased this a couple times in a couple of my other videos, but I'm doing a forgotten album series, which is going to be uh, reviews for albums from back in the day that from bands that are either not together anymore or just never really took off, or they made an album that should have gotten more recognition than it did. It might be something dated today. Just generally a forgotten album that was good. And I'm going to try to do one of these a month, maybe two if the time allows. There's always so much good current music to look at and stuff. Um, but this is it. We're going to kick it off today with Volume 1. Volume 1 is going to be a review and look back at the 2008 self-titled album from the Fort Worth, Texas band Sky Eats Airplane. Sky Eats Airplane were really only together for, I want to say, like maybe 5 years, 6 years. They formed in 2005 and disbanded in early 2011. They always had trouble keeping members. I think there's only one guy that was in every single release, which is the founding member, who's one of the guitar players. Brief history, they came out with they started with like some say it's an EP, some say it's an album because it's kind of short, but it was their first release, Everything Perfect on the Wrong Day, and they were just a two-man band at that time. The founding member did all this electronic stuff and the guitars and basically everything but the vocals, and the vocals were done by a vocalist that's not featured on this album. Then after that, that vocalist left, and the guitarist decided to try to expand into an actual, like, more serious band, because this release was just kind of it was more just kind of like a fun, not really jokey, but kind of hard to take seriously because there was like electronic drums that sounded really just kind of amateurish. I think that's the word I'm looking for. And there's a lot of goofy stuff was in there, and it was just kind of all over the place. But there's a couple good tracks on it. I'm not dogging on it, but this is where they really hit their stride. This album we're going to talk about today, which is their 2008 self-titled album. And on this one, they got one of my favorite vocalists, Jerry Roosh, to front the band. They rounded it out with a second guitarist, a bassist, a drummer. It was a full five-piece band, and instead of having the electronic element of their sound be so like overpowering and just like so much of a part of everything, it was more used as an atmospheric piece with the band, and the results could not have been better. And after that, Jerry Roosh left, and they got another singer, and a bunch of other people came and gone. They did one more EP, and then they called it quits. And that, yeah, when I think about just like how much what they were doing predates a lot of the bands that are out there now, I just can't believe they're not viewed more highly today and talked about more today. I mean, even when they were a band, they seem like they just didn't catch on to a lot of people's radars. They definitely had a fan base. And when I say an album is forgotten or a band is forgotten, it's more like I'm complaining about that. I'm not saying that they didn't do well or that they didn't have a fan base or that they deserve to be forgotten or anything like that. So I just want to get that out of the way. I'm not dogging on this band or any band that we dive into for this series. But in the big scheme of things, this is a forgotten about band kind of. So I think it's right to look back at some of these and give them a nice track by track review. And you know, I have like four of these that I have planned to do. I have one request so far, and I want requests. If there's a bit album that fits this category that you think uh, should have taken off but never did, and you want to throw it in the comments, please do. I'll give it the review it deserves. Definitely taking requests for this. I know I don't have much of an audience right now. I'm not expecting to get requests really just yet, but until then, I got enough to keep the ball rolling. So yeah, let's break this thing down. The best way to describe the brand of metalcore, electronic metalcore that this album encapsulates would be definitely sporadic. It's very mathy. Um, but at the same time, it has a very commercial feel. They chose the producer Brian McTernan to do this, and I'm familiar with a couple albums he did. Self-titled Amorosa, Thrice's Artist in the Ambulance. Those are the two that come to mind. And all of those projects and this one all have the same kind of drum sound. He definitely has a signature drum sound in his production. It's very smooth and polished. Um, some of the production choices were kind of interesting here. The big one, and you'll hear other people who do talk about this album say it, is the guitars. Especially the lead guitars were way too low in the mix. And I don't know if that was something the band said to do or something he thought would be a good idea, but the guitars, there are moments where they need to be front and center on this thing and they're not. But that's really all I got to say about the production. It's very sleek, very smooth for the time. Despite the fact that we're going to be hearing some very mathy, chaotic at times, sporadic kind of stuff, it's all done with the super accessible production style. So yeah, let's dive into it. Number one is just called Introduction. It's an electronic foreboding thing. It's about 40 seconds, and it's really just a segue into the first actual song. Number two, Long Walks on Short Bridges. It starts off with kind of like almost an Every Time I Die sounding guitar riff and vocal style. Like Jerry's scream on this album is very it's kind of like a yell, you know. It's not really like you don't hear any like too many growls. I mean, he does some, you know, but the yelling style with this riff, it's very Every Time I Die, you know. And then when it kicks in, it's the first time like we're already seeing like how this producer may not get like how a lot of the metalcore bands should be. Like when it kicks in, yeah, it kicks in, but it could kick in harder production wise. But very mathy, very tight playing when it comes in. You know, the screams get heavier, and then boom, right out of nowhere, we're going into some very croony, like scary kids sounding, clean singing with some nice spacey keyboards behind the chords, and he kind of takes off singing some more. And this song is really just amazing part after amazing part. Like it's very tight, very mathy. It slows down at the end of the song, and the atmosphere is just great on this. Yeah, it's a very good introduction to what you're going to be getting here. So yeah, let's move on to number three, Transparent. Transparent is it's a bit more chill, but it starts with a very nice guitar lead with some jazzy chords playing in the background, and Jerry starts crooning, and it turns into a nice kind of alt screamo type song, but with all this techie drumming and stuff behind it that you wouldn't hear in like your average screamo kind of band. So you know, maybe that's why a lot of people didn't digest this band right away, just because they kind of, to the outside listener, they might be too poppy for like the metal people, but too techy for the screamo people. I mean, I don't know, but I think it sounds great together. He doesn't start screaming until the couple minute mark on this one, like actually having like a screaming driven part, and it's just so great when it comes. Some nice double kicks, the riffs. Like I didn't even take notes for this. Like I've listened to this album so many times in my life that I'm just going off of memory. Like I love this album and this band. And you know, I actually in 2010 I was this close to seeing them live. I had a ticket, and something told me, that they weren't gonna last. Like something just told me that. Even when I bought this self-titled album, I was like, man, I really hope they stick around. But they kind of sound like a band that isn't going to. I don't know why I foreshadowed that, but anyway, long story short, their bus broke down, so I had to get a refund, and then shortly after that, they disbanded it, and that was such a bummer. Like, because I've seen a bunch of like Warped Tour footage on YouTube of like Jerry fucking brought it live, man. Like they all did. They all played super tight. Um, but yeah, Transparent is a really good song. It hits the 6 minute mark because there's a 2 minute ish kind of instrumental interlude that connects the two tracks, and you're gonna see that all through this album. And I love it. Um, so you're kind of taking on this like trip with this electronic part. It lasts about 2 minutes, and then out of nowhere, we're going into number 4, Numbers. Um, Anybody who is familiar with this band, this is probably the song they heard. Like this is the single. This is the song that got the video. The song they promoted and pushed and played at every show. And it is that for a reason. It's very good. It comes in with a very mathy riff that turns into an off-time kind of chuggy breakdown, and then right into the screamo stuff with some crazy hi-hat work on the drums. I think what else? Before I talk about the one thing that the producer kind of blundered on this song, and anybody who knows this album and band knows where I'm going with this. It gets very chordy in the second half, just kind of lets the atmosphere take over with Jerry just screaming like some simple lines, and it's so good. And then there's a really shreddy guitar solo, and the producer put it in the back of the mix. Like you seriously can't fucking hear it. Like I can hear it because I have like an ear for this kind of stuff, but you got to know it's coming and listen to it. Like listen, like I cannot believe that they would have that done, especially on like the single. I don't know why. You like even in the video you can see the guy playing the solo, but on the wrong speakers you're gonna be like, is he shredding? Like, but aside from that, this is another great song. And number 5, World Between Us. This is a poppier number. There's plenty of heavy, mathy, techie stuff to be found here, but it's definitely a poppier number. And the chord progressions of what Jerry does on all of the clean sung sections are so atmospheric and just like beautiful, and all the synth work, like I just love it so much. The hook, I kind of wanted to put little bits and pieces of parts, highlights of this album in this video so you can hear like what I'm talking about. But Equal Vision Records, I did a couple years ago. I put a lot of work into this Glass Cloud vocal cover, which is another band that Jerry fronted that we'll talk about a little bit at the end. But I did this whole thing and I tried to upload it, and Equal Vision Records will block anything. And they're the only record label I've ever seen do that. Like I've never had a problem uploading a cover of anything else I've done, but I know if I put sound bits of the Sky Eats Airplane album in this video, it's going to get blocked, unfortunately. So, yeah. But to someone who's never heard this album before, it would be nice to have like some sound bites in there. But I can't urge you enough to try to listen to this album. It's so good. And then my favorite song is number 6, Photographic Memory. Photographic Memory starts off with like some amazing synth work. Mathy, there's tons of mathy parts where the guitar kind of stop, and like Jerry and the synth stuff kind of carry the song in the middle of it. It's really good, you know. It's another perfect encapsulation of all the best aspects of what this record has to offer. It's definitely one I would recommend to listen to first to like draw you into it. Okay, number 7, In Retrospect. This is the most chill song on the album. It's a mid-tempo, kind of balladish song, if that's a word. I think there's only one scream in the whole thing. I can see, you know, if somebody found this particular song to be boring. I mean, I understand it because it's very slow, just slowly strummed chords. There's nothing really coming out at you, but I mean, I think it's pretty good. I wouldn't label it a top track, but I'm glad it's here and I never skip it. Number 8, The Artificial. This is kind of like Photographic Memory, and then it's like a big hodgepodge of everything they do extremely well. Lots of peaks and valleys with this song. A great hook. Some great heavy stuff. I think he throws some growls in there, and then it ends on another one of these couple minute long electronic interlude pieces. And this one, I don't know what it is about it, but I've always just found it to be like really like depressing sounding. It's great. It's great, but it's definitely a sad piece of music, sad sounding piece of music. And then it goes into, okay, 9 and 10. This is almost 20 minutes long, so I'm going to talk a little faster here. But 9 and 10 are both completely devoid of clean singing and are just heavy, heavy, heavy. And I'm glad, like, that's another thing about this album. It's just so well structured as far as the track order and everything. Like, this is, like, they did not half-ass this album. Like, it definitely sounds, I could be wrong about this because I don't know, but it sounds to me like this whole piece may have been one guy's vision that he had everybody else kind of work around. It definitely feels like that to me. Like this was one vision with other people's input into it. But the 10th song, Machines, the second one of this 2-part heavy onslaught here, it's like a minute and a half. It's so mathy, so techy. Just don't hear too many bands doing stuff like this anymore, you know, and it's great. So the closing song, Alias, it starts with the pop hook, which is kind of like is the hook of the song, and it goes into some sporadic mathy stuff. I mean, there's really nothing I can say about the songs anymore, aside that they're great, and just like I couldn't urge you enough to listen to this. This album ends with some very mid-tempo, dreary kind of vibes, with Jerry just belting out the last couple lines of lyrics like it's the last time he's ever going to scream again. I mean, it's you know, it is definitely a great finale. And yeah, I wanted to hear another album with this lineup so bad. Like when I heard Jerry left, I was super bummed out about it. But it was my speculation. Like my guess was that maybe since he like did so much singing on this album, maybe he wanted to go into an even softer, poppier direction, and the band didn't want to do that. But upon figuring out what he went to next, Glass Cloud, I think it was definitely the opposite, where he wanted to go heavier. Maybe they didn't, because their following EP, The Sound of Symmetry, was definitely a lighter album. They had a different vocalist that I didn't like as much, and they got 3 songs out with that, and they're good, and they have all the things that they did on this album, but something just felt missing on that one, even though it was only 3 songs. And then that was like the last we heard of them. But yeah, Jerry went on to do Glass Cloud. And man, did his scream get better when he did Glass Cloud. But the same thing, man. Glass Cloud didn't make it. And at this point, if you go on Wikipedia, Jerry himself is listed on there as not being an active musician. Like, I hope he didn't quit music completely, but dude's off the grid. Um, there's no word of even, I don't even know. I would be surprised if they ever got Glass Cloud back together, let alone this band. I mean, this band is definitely just kind of dead in the water, and when the pandemic happened, a bunch of metalcore bands that I never thought would get back together did get back together, and they were not one of them. They didn't do like a 10-year anniversary for this album. They're just done, I think. They're just done. And that's unfortunate because, like when you hear like I remember the first time I picked up the first Periphery album, a band that would go on to be this huge, huge metal band. So many things they did in their first album was taken out of Sky Eats Airplane's playbook. There's no way that they weren't influenced by them. Like when I bought that album, the Periphery one, I was like, yeah, this is Born of Osiris and Sky Eats Airplane together, And I did like Periphery very much for like the first couple albums. They kind of got a little too showboaty for me towards the end with the last couple, especially with Spencer, and they're kind of like turned into a gent dream theater. It's just just seems a little pretentious at this point, but their first couple albums were really good, and I was just like, yeah, these guys definitely know who Sky Eats Airplane is. So yeah, this review is longer than I planned on, but yeah, I cannot say enough good things about this band and this album, but yeah, if you like any type of, you don't even have to like heavy music. I mean, this got something for everybody, and everything is just done so well. The playing is so tight. You don't know what's coming next all the time. Like, there's tons of surprises in this. It's really good, and it's a shame that these guys did not take off and that we will probably most likely never hear from them again. But yeah, listen to it, man. Sky Eats Airplane. All right, until the next time, the next one of these I do will be a review request. It'll be a request from somebody. So maybe I'll do it later this month if there's time, or it'll be next month. But yeah, until next time, this was the Forgotten Album series. And thanks for watching. Listen to Sky Eats Airplane.